Another one from S5 rewatch. Elfwin and Sina left kissing, and then the second shot of them kissing, Chiora looking on, sadly. 88,888,888. Before she had left with Eswi to go to Gloucester, Osrith had sought out Sula, the daughter of Bark, the British healer who lived beyond the walls of Dunnottar. Sula had helped her with Lily and Danzy roots and with the consequences once before. That had been Constantine's child, conceived at Glen Orkney, and her second ending, and she had warned Osrith, as Betha in Doia had warned her, that it was a dark road she was treading by intervening with fate as she was doing. Yet, Silver had influenced Sula, as it had influenced Bark and Ull and Betha to supply her with herbs, and it was the catalyst that had finally caused Sula to open her door to Osrith, although she had not wished to admit her. Constantine was more tolerant than Domhnall, and about the Britons, yet it had been Greogia who had herded most of them into a church before setting fire to it. Tagd had died that day too, and Osrith was understanding of Sula's reluctance to even admit she was at her door. She did not have to introduce herself, for the healer recognized her still, and Sula ushered her inside her home, which had once been her mother's, and stood there with her arms folded, staring at Osrith. Then Osrith moved her arms. "Come here, when it is your time," Sula said immediately, glancing at the small heap of silver in her hands. "Because I can see above all things. You are terrified, girl." And Osrith was. She had been through many things that would terrify many people. But the loss of control of her body, control we may never come back again, was what she feared most. She had thought a lot of Ailey, the girl at Doia, who had suffered so much to bring forth Domhnall a bastard, and she was not even 20. How would Osrith even be able to contemplate surviving this in her advanced years? She had had no root, and yet she had slept with Finan with abandon in St. Cuthbert's cave, below Bibbenberg. "When it is your time, is there a way you can tell the father?" Sula asked. "None," Osrith told her. For Finan was lost to her. "When did you lie with him?" And she told Sula. It was springtime, that had been when Constantine had sent ships to aid Riga, and had repelled Dutad in the process. It had to be Finan's child, it was the right time, the last time with Constantine too distant, Edward too close. "There is nothing I can do for you more than you can do for yourself," Sula reassured her, smoothing her fingers through her long, graying hair. "You are healthy and strong." "Sometimes the strong die, and the weak live on," Osrith said. Sometimes, Sula had agreed, but most of the time, a healthy mother will have an easy time of it. "I can birth you," she added. "You have passed me enough silver, Osrith Lackland." That had been 4 months before. Before she had left with Eswi, Angus, and Phelim. And in the meantime, Ealasaid, who had birthed Evand, Constantine's father, had been arranged. "I thank you," Osrith had said, graciously. "I find that I am a fellow Briton to you, of the line of the Henol Ed." Sula laughed. "Then, we are enemies, for I am of Morcant BWLCH's line." But the Briton had laughed in her telling to Osrith and added, "We are Britons, we are of the peoples who came here after the time of ice." The time of ice? Osrith had not known what Sula had meant. "Do you not know the stories?" She made her way over to the cooking pot, closing the rear door of her house a little for a wind had got up. "My mother used to sing a song. I remember sitting with her and my cousins, listening to her sing it when she made certain recipes. It told of a bare land, and coldness, and how the peoples left, but some came back when a green shoot sprang up and warmth came to this island. We covered the whole island, we traveled. Everyone could talk to everyone else. He had settlements on islands out in the sea, north of here. Now the wicked Say and the wicked Northmen have overrun the land and has made it into one of misery and bloodshed and death. Your Majesty," Sula added, and bowed, and Osrith had laughed. "Don't be afeard of the pain," Sula told her, "for childbirth is painful. Pains will come to your hips and the insides of your legs. Do not let the woman get you lying down. Stand," Sula continued, "and it will be easier. Do not let them treat you with anything except cool boiled water and mint leaves." She passed across to Osrith, signaling with her hands to lift up her shirt. Osrith flinched a little when Sula put her hands around her bump, much as Edith had done, and looked at Osrith as she felt. "Your boy will be a poet, a song knower, a senchai, a Sgileish," she told Osrith. "He is of Irian and will learn the stories of his culture and that of the Gaelish culture and of the Angles and the Cymric, and he will be loved for his mastery of the poem and the ballad and the magic that when transported to the other side." "The other side?" Sula gave a hearty laugh. "Where the Sai live, of course." She laughed. "Did you not know, when the Fae folk left these islands and went underground, they took all story and song and poetry with them? Only a few can harness the power, and it utterly changes them, every time, when they share it with the great and the good, the noble and the humble." She lowered Osrith's shirt. "It is how the Sai ensnare the mind. Whole communities of people can walk in a trance to their death, to be with the Sai while listening to music being played or a story being told. Did you not know?" Osrith had managed to shake her head as Sula told her this. But the Sgileish knows just what to say, what to do, and understands more than anyone the responsibility he has. He must be kind, just. He must be humane to his listeners, and not lead anyone beyond. Osrith put her hands to her stomach. "A Belash. Not a Gaeleg." "A Sgileish is always a boy," Sula told her. "He will resemble his father, and have his mother's wit and strength and courage. He will need it." That had been then, and this was now. 88,888,888. It was Sainid in whose arms Osrith was being carried, and the man took her as if she were no more than a leaf in through Dunotta's castle gates, calling to the guards to bring the drawbridge down. Osrith flinched in his arms as a pain came to her, the same pain that had come to her when he had run to meet her. "Go. Go." He had called, "Tell Elasaid." And he carried her into the guard room and laid her onto his own bed. Elasaid had come as Osrith was trying to get up, and she was firm with her and made her lie back down again. "Edra," Osrith demanded. "Where is my daughter?" "I will send for someone to fetch her," the elderly servant assured Osrith, "but you will indulge me, Caeleg, and lie here for a while? You will recover your strength, you will need it. I know you wish to stand, and believe me, I will let you when you need to." And she called to Sainid to call for boiling water from Glimri in the kitchen and to tell him it was for the Caeleg. "Here is not the place for you to be," Elasaid told Osrith. "You need to be above." "I have no chamber," Osrith told her. "I sleep in the back of the kitchens. And now, you will go into confinement. The Balash will mind me when I tell him where you will go." And she put a stout arm out for Osrith to grab onto, and brought her up to a standing position. "Sainid." Elasaid called again. "Sainid." After a moment the head of the household guard got to the door, and peered around. "Nothing to be shy of here," Elasaid told him, firmly. "The Caeleg needs to go up to Mistress Ira's room." Osrith started at the name. Ira had been Domhnall's wife, who had come with Mary across from Doia when they were to marry the two princes. Malcolm's mother, she had died in childbirth, as was the lot of many women, and Osrith shook her head determinedly. "Dinny Fash," Elasaid told her, firmly. It was Mistress Jeannie's room afore Ira's, the mother of the Belash, and Mistress Sunna's afore hers. All the ons of the Alpin family were brought to the world there. And Osrith relented. Jeannie had been Constantine's mother, Sunna had been's. Clearly, Elasaid had made arrangements for her there through LNG tradition of births, though what exactly confinement meant she did not know. The room had been adorned with many soft furnishings on the bed, on the walls, a long, thin square room with shutters took over the window. There were two doors into the room, and Elasaid had made Sainid put her down onto her feet beside the door, shooing the man away when he had tried to linger. Elasaid had taken off a layer of her own clothing, before washing her own hands in the hot water and herbs which had arrived by Glimri's own efforts, following Sainid up the stairs, and Elasaid had demanded more be brought, and the whitest Irish linen as they has, before shooing Glimri away as well. But Sainid returned within a few minutes and was watching Elasaid and Osrith. "Everything has to come off," she told Osrith, who glanced towards Sainid. The man's thin, angular face looked firm, which Osrith knew meant he was worried. Sainid. She called to him. Take Bui. Tagged Sikhs. Look after them for me. With a glance to Elasaid, who was, without question, in charge, he waited for a nod, which he received, and scooped up her blades. Osrith, he began, and his sharp blue-grey eyes looked piercingly into her own. If he was about to say something to her, Osrith would never know, for she was bustled through the first door, the second in front of her, with the midwife closing the first and pulling at her clothes. And bring more boiling water and cloth. Ye wean while ye're about it. Elasaid called over her shoulder to Sainid as he descended the stairs before shutting the outer door. You must leave them here, and I must clean ye. Elasaid nodded to the low bed. I have made ye a birthing gown these last months, she added, and Osrith looked at the plain gown with ties at the front, and then glanced back sadly to her breeches and her shirt, boot and jerkin. First, I must bathe ye all over, and once I have done that, you will be ready for whatever God has in store for ye. So Osrith was standing naked, her stomach protruding more than ever it had done in her life thus far, her foreign breasts rounded, her nipple dark and big, ready for the child's nourishment, Osrith supposed. But she was not ready for what came next. Bathed, and dressed in a garment with sleeves and ties down the front, a quantity of clear fluid flowed from between her legs with her next muscle contraction, which Elasaid was clearly waiting for and was ready with a linen. Glymery. Elasaid called, but then there came a banging on the door. Who? Edra. Wait. Elasaid told her, and crossed to the door, turning the handle. Turn it, she told Edra, and wash your arms up to your elbows. She pointed to a herb-infused bowl of water whose steam coiled rapidly into the air. There was little time for Osrith to think of anything much after that, for the pains came rapidly and Elasaid helped her to her feet, making Osrith stand, her hands on Edra's shoulders. The elderly midwife put her hands to Osrith's stomach and felt. Your child is turned, and is ready, she told her. You are coming along. But as time went on, hours and hours of muscle contractions, the evidence was to the contrary, the baby was not coming along, he was not coming out of her at all. Edra, Elasaid said, and Osrith could tell that something was wrong, despite the woman's efforts to hide it. I need you to do something for me. You are going to need to give your mother's stomach a push, to give the child some help. Can you do that? Osrith heard Edra agree, and she saw a flash of gold-red hair in her line of vision. Osrith, Elasaid told her. Edra is going to come behind you and pull your stomach in. You need to tell me when the next ache is coming, for she must do it at the right time. Your baby is ready to come. Your birth canal is ready for him to come. He just needs some help. Help. That was what Elasaid called it. And it had helped, in the end. Finan Big was born within 10 minutes. But those 10 minutes were the most agonizing Osrith had ever felt. Osrith bore down on Edra's arm at the time of the next contraction, but Edra did nothing and Elasaid had to reassure her that everything was going to be all right. On the next one, Edra pulled. Her hands were roughly on the baby's bottom, and in pulling, it caused crowning. Osrith gritted her teeth, for her cervix was now being forced to accommodate a head. One more pull, and another, until Osrith's body was doing it on her own. Edra, you must catch the child. Elasaid told her, as she lay down layers of linen between Osrith's legs, replacing the blood-soaked ones. Get your hands into the boiling water, quickly now. Elasaid insisted. Just in time. Osrith's body, which had not known contractions until encouraged to do so with Edra's help, felt agonized, as more and more contractions pushed the child out from her. She felt the child pass out of her, and a thin cord by her leg, and she recalled Alia's child's cord. But that was all she remembered, for Osrith had left and Mary had taken charge of that birth while Osrith had thrown up outside. Some mumbling came from Elasaid not long afterwards, and Edra said, You're biting it. What exactly the servant was biting, Osrith did not know, but she felt a second pushing with muscles aflame again. A second child? Another? Osrith managed, but she heard Elasaid laugh. Surely not twins. It is called the afterbirth, Iolase told her. Your son was living within it when he was inside you. It protected him from bumps. And beneath her legs fell a gelaceous mass of matter. What is to be done with that? Osrith asked, when Iolase had folded it away carefully. Why, I will get Glimmery to cook it, of course. For the animals? Edro asked, suspiciously. For us. Iolase laughed. It will go well in a broth. And Iolase folded up a clean linen cloth between Osrith's legs before calling for yet more water and washing down her thighs. Edra helped her to the bed. But she had no eyes for her adopted daughter just then. Osrith's eyes were on her son, her beautiful, black-haired son, whose hands were curled up tightly, and who wriggled over her chest to find her nipple as Iolase eased the dress back to her shoulders. For Osrith, time could have stopped still for her there. In this perfect little moment of tranquility, just her son and her, his little warm body lying directly on her own skin as he suckled, and she did not see Sainid bridle at the quantity of blood-soaked linen that Iolase had piled together and Edra was helping take downstairs, nor the waterfall of red-brown water falling from the second-story window. She dozed, and so did the child. Osrith's son,